Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Elitist Gaming Podcast. My name is Nolan Nick, and today I have a lovely group of people here who will be talking about some world-first Destiny raiding. Joining me today on this very first podcast is, first off, a man who is the same no matter what number you put in front of him. He's also way too chill for his own good, Mr. Zero.
Hello.
My second guest is a man who is the epitome of last year's hit meme. He also found a way into my podcast, Mr. Wei.
Hey.
My third guest is a man who claims to have a doppelganger, but we have yet been able to find it, Mr. Double Redux.
I have a doppelganger?
Where
did this come from?
My fourth guest is a person you always get confused with when you see his hairstyle, Mr. Fluffy.
Wait, what? What is that?
Nick, where are these intros
Yeah, where are these coming from?
I
Nick,
mean,
we're gonna have to
anytime I
restart
see
this.
you, like anytime I see you, I either have a fade or like a kind of a pseudo afro.
We might have to restart.
No, my final guest is a man who rides to Santa every year wanting his own pack of wolves, Mr. Alpha.
I don't understand with these intros.
It's not okay to lie to
What do you mean pack of wolves? I don't know.
Is there an alpha?
Why did you-
The alpha wolf?
Oh, I see. Yes.
You're
All
trying way too hard.
Nick, thank you for
Like,
your
like the man that is
Thank
more
you.
alpha.
bunch
No,
of really
listen,
boring
It's more alpha than me. Alpha.
We're a lot boring than you're making us seem.
Alright.
Hey,
Now on to
All right, what's this about? What are we here for?
so
Yeah.
for this podcast, I want to be bringing out the idea. I want to bridge the gap between understanding eSports and like what the outside viewers see, kind of like what the inner workings and inner workings of how a team is formed versus like what you see on a daily basis, playing on a way more casual perspective. So
Okay.
the topic I chose today was the world first race in Destiny. For some of you out there are like, what's a raid? I have never heard this in my entire life. Basically, a raid is this end of the game activity where you and 5 of your best friends come together and you take on these very large and challenging dungeon type activities, and you get the best loot or some of the best loot in the entire game.
It's very frustrating. There's a lot of swearing. It's a lot of crying. People are broken. It's a lovely time.
And a lot of explaining too. Like a lot of explaining.
Yes, and that's basically the TLDR of what a raid is.
Well, we should also
Internal
mention that
agony.
they have objectives. I guess you could call them objectives. We call them mechanics that you have to perform in order to successfully complete a raid,
Correct.
which are very important.
And so, just to read off like a few bullet points. So raid enemies you don't see anywhere else in the game. Like these are exclusive raid. I don't know, like bosses that you have never seen before. Yeah, and they're made specifically for these storylines and stuff. So
Yeah,
They're
so,
supposed to be unique, but in some specific circumstances, they are not.
yeah, they can be recycled. A little
yeah,
And we can talk
Just
about
a
that if we
little.
want to.
they
But
can be,
it's usually quite fun to go through it either way.
they can be either very legendary or very bad to the point where you're just meeting them the whole time.
Yeah. What I mean by memeing, because just make
Basically, they're so ridiculous that you can't really take the encounter seriously, I'd say.
Double them in your fire team.
Yes.
it's a joke.
So basically, in terms of story wise, we're now reaching like the climax of the story. Like this is where you're gonna fight like that guy you found on the cover of the game. It's like I want to fight that big guy and get his loot.
This is where the man with the how to phrase this without. This is the man with the cojones here.
The cojones, you see?
It's time to kick him in them, and that's about it.
So
And yeah, it's a generally pretty fun time.
yes.
Yeah.
So when a new raid, so to explain to people listening to this, when a new raid comes out, that is when a very exclusive event called the World First Race comes out. It's as the title suggests, you are racing towards becoming the first team in the world to beat this boss, or beat the entire raid, and claim those bragging rights. So how would you guys explain like what is the World First Race? Like how would you explain it in a more
So basically, it's like you and your 6 squads are going against other 6 squads, like wherever they are in the world, trying to beat the raid, figure out the mechanics before they do, and be the first ones to ever complete it. And like what Bungie does, it's like you get like this title belt, and then you just have bragging rights into like the next raid, and usually you get some sort of special emblem or something like that, just to prove
The raid comes out on a specified date. Everyone's informed, hey, this is the day it's coming out. Everyone gets ready and prepares for it to the best of their ability. And then it's generally just a rush to figure out how to get through each section as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Often it's a big problem. Well, not a problem, but one
It's
thing
controversial, I guess. I think what you're talking
Well, what I was going for was that one of the harder parts about it is the undergearing, where a lot of people go into a raid under the level they need to be, and so not only are they trying to solve the problems, figure out the puzzles and the mechanics to each part, but they're also having to deal with really underpowered gear, and they just get destroyed. So
Yeah, we can at least say that's what our experience is like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, generally, when the raid first comes out, you can't really get up to the level that it's recommended, so there's an extra challenge element involved of trying to get through it while being at a slight disadvantage. It's still at a doable rate, but it's definitely harder than later on when everyone learns, like, okay, well, this is what you do for different mechanics, and they actually have the levels to do it more cleanly.
Yes, but there is also the people who kind of abuse the system that's now being fixed in the game with the engrams and holding on to their gear, basically their upgrades, like from weeks prior or week prior, and using it to make it easier to, complete the raid when it might be harder for others who have not held on to engrams, but they're getting rid of that.
So that brings on to my first point, like this first part of what I would call a marathon of epic proportions, the World First Race, is the gearing process. This is what I would call being a no-lifer for a video game. Like you're just spending day in, day out, or hours on end farming for specific gear. And I think all of us can attest, you're getting the gear, you're slowly building your level up to the point you want. But there's always either that one piece you just cannot get, or there's that one piece you just always keep getting.
Shorts Galinar. Oh my god, there's something in my throat there.
God damn it.
So for the way it works is there's each piece like of armor or a weapon in the game has a number tied to it, and then you have a big overall number that's the average of all those numbers. So if you have one number that's really low and you can't find something to increase that number, it's going to pull down your entire average, and so you get stuck looking for something that would fill that slot that you need. And it can be a little frustrating because you don't really get to choose what item slot you get stuff for. It's generally just you get something random that's supposed to be higher than your overall average, but sometimes you have a piece that's just so much higher than the rest of the others that if you get a new piece in that slot, it's not higher than what you already have, and then it's kind of like a wasted item.
Can I use an example
Yeah.
All right, so one example that I had when we started this last race for Scourge to Pass, one of my first pieces I got was a shotgun. And I remember over the next 2 hours playing, I got 3 or 4 more shotguns in that same slot, and I was just pounding my desk. It's stop giving me these shotguns. Save it.
Yeah, it can be a bit frustrating when you get the same item over and over, especially if it's just one specific piece you need. And yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you're like, oh, that kind of sucks, and then it kind of comes back to bite you when you're actually doing the event, which generally how long would you say they take before they release it? It'd be like 2 weeks normally, or sometimes for the smaller ones, it's like less than a week.
That 2 week one was actually an exception. Normally they're like the week of, so like we have like 3 days to gear up. So
yeah, there was one time it was 2 weeks, and that's because it was like a new
brand
big
expansion. They learned their lesson.
Yeah, the overall whole thing was a bit bigger than past raids, and because of that, they decided that we'll give people a bit more time to get everything they need.
And how long did that raid take to finish? Last wish, by the way. How long did that race take to finish?
About 23 hours, I think.
It was
The first team finished it
18
somewhere in
48.
the 17 or 18 hours.
It was 18 hours and 48 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then the following 2 completions, there was another completion that was within the 24 hours, and then one more completion that was just over 24 hours.
No, it wasn't.
That was like 24 hours 24 hours and 2 minutes. The third.
Yeah,
one.
it was Dato's
okay, my bad.
stream.
Yeah, and of course that was like the cutoff period for when you could get a special thing from completing it early, and so that's become a bit of a joke.
Yeah,
so that one was probably the hardest one that's ever been done, and the longest it's ever taken compared to other experiences. So generally, they are completed within the first day. It just sort of depends on
Which raid?
how long it is, and because the one we were just talking about was the longest one they'd ever made, and it was also probably one of the more complex ones. So that combined definitely added to the increase in time compared to past ones.
All right, next topic.
So we've done the gearing, and we've done gearing. It's raid day. So I believe when we first did Scourge of the Past, we spent like probably a good 5 minutes trying to figure out the first zone, and then came a part where we're progressing, which is why what I like the most in progression rating, or rating itself as progression, is this: you're dying over and over again, but you're like taking these baby steps towards the end of it to complete a fight.
Yeah, it's a process to figure out the fight. So the way it works is there's generally it's like a puzzle you have to solve alongside the normal content, like all the normal fighting the enemies. There's some puzzle element you have to solve, and they don't tell you any like hints, any explanation on what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to do it. So you have to gradually figure out what you're supposed to do, and then once you do figure it out, there's actually just getting the execution part down.
I remember when we were doing the first part. The first section was like this whole map area. After a while, our 2 people who are map readers, when we solved the puzzle, they were dying a lot, and so I remember switching somebody out, and like the next 2 pulls, we completed the boss fight. And it was honestly probably like one of the most satisfying things, because we were like, oh my god, we now have a chance for it. We're not gonna like be stuck here at this first boss and like be knocked out super quickly.
Are you talking about the mech, or are you talking about the city?
The
city part.
Schnell.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically it's this map on top of a tower, and somebody has to read the map and then tell the people who pick up these orbs where to put the orbs, and it basically just keeps the progression.
Just imagine gradually figuring this out without like any hint. It gets really complex at times, and so
the thing is, if you're under light leveled, like you have to worry about getting shot by enemies and doing mechanics and trying new things, and it's like kind of a multitasking.
It's like you're juggling plates all over the place, and if one falls, the rest of them are going to fall and come crashing off the top of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why preparation's important, and why the grind is such a big thing.
Do you guys remember when we completed that portion, when we went underground, and we discovered the race? We're like, how do we get out of this room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were looking for so long.
Part of the first, like, honestly.
I was like, I think there's little buttons
where to go.
We opened the door and we're like, oh sweet, this is awesome, and also this giant flames like in my face, and we're screaming at the top of my lungs. We're like, go run!
So we were trying to figure out where to go.
Did we all die? I thought,
there's these two there were these two like pad things, and we were like, well, what the hell are these?
They're like locks, or not like
they're like touch pads.
Yeah.
It's like, and we figured out, oh well, you're supposed to melee them at the same time as someone else, and if you do that, it'll open. And what's behind door number 1? It's a giant flaming ball of death. And then that section was pretty fun to do. It wasn't very complex to figure out. It was more of just like, oh, here's a short like fun.
Here's a blaze of glory you need to get away from.
It was basically like you're like on a motorcycle and there's this giant ball of fire trying to kill you, and you have to run away from said giant ball of fire.
Not to mention the buttons that we tried to get. We almost got all of them, which unlocks a chest. Now that we know, that has the potential to drop a really rare vehicle for your, Sparrow.
Yeah, there are these cosmetic items that you can get that are sort of like unique to the encounter, and they're a bit hidden. And so to get it, you have to do an extra challenge part. Now, of course, we didn't do it the first time because we're like, we'd rather finish this than not. So
you were very adamant about getting that chest, though.
Was it me or was it someone else?
It was you. I remember it was you.
I guess it probably was. It probably was just because it wasn't really hard to do. But the main problem again was just we weren't the recommended level. Because so we would die quite quickly to the random enemies strewn about the place, and so we decided, it's best not to. Best to worry about the bonus stuff for when we can actually complete it.
I remember going to other VODs after the race was over, after we threw in our towel and stuff, to see other people's reaction on that fight, and they were equally, if not more, scared than I was when I let mine out on stream.
That's the other thing. It's a really popular spectator thing too, because some people, since it's an activity that requires you to gather 6 people beforehand, like you can't just randomly find someone from the game server or whatever. You have to like have the people ready beforehand. So because of that, for people who don't have enough people to do it, or just don't want to, it's a good spectator sport for streamers to, show to people and get some viewers, and a lot of people tune in for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, not only do they tune in, for the actual stream, but they also, it is a good way for streamers who kind of want to get big to grow their following, especially if they do well in the raid and get somewhere before everybody else. Then a lot of people will tune in and watch them instead of who they would normally watch.
Yeah, I remember that during I believe it was Last Wish. Like this other guy, like he was also like I think like a lot of the people were stuck on Vault, and this other team like made it to like Riven.
Yeah, Ninja.
And like everyone just like swapped to them. It's like, whoa, no one else is on this part.
And then since it's a puzzle trying to figure out what to do first, a lot of streamers will watch the other streamers' streams to figure out if they figured out what to do, and like try to glean some insight where they might be stuck. And because of that, in a sense, because of that, some people try to like sort of hide their strategies. I remember watching some of the Riven from one person, and they would all mute themselves and talking about like, oh, well, we should figure out, try to do this, etc. So it gets very competitive between the people who actually have like a chance of completing it.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I'm amused by the cheating.
I was amused by the slight cheating under there, but oh god, now we're down to the part where like I cringe still. I'm looking at you, Fluffy.
What?
I'm looking up.
What? What did I do?
Everything. Everything.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. Okay. Alright.
Fluffy's innocent, man.
He's innocent until proven guilty. Now the judge.
I have dyslexia, alright.
What are you referring to?
I can't read.
Oh my god, this color is red.
When we were
I'm colorblind. I can't tell.
Was this Cap?
To explain. So in the sense of the past encounter, there's a section where you're hitting some buttons similar to the keypads we described before.
Oh.
And one of them is a bright flashing red one that basically screams, "Don't touch me," because if you touch it, you basically just kill everyone. And so we were like 5% health off from finishing the boss.
Bless you.
And what do you know? Fluffy goes up and smacks it right there, and just we have to
Start
from the
all
beginning.
over.
Yeah.
And it took another hour. I think.
Yeah,
That was fun.
Yeah, we started for another hour, and funny thing is that the next week, I think, when I did my first pug of Search for the Pass, same exact boss, completely random people that are met online, by the way, someone does the same exact thing.
I told you, dyslexia.
Yeah, he took the same exact thing, dyslexia. I'm like, how is this possible? What are you doing?
I got dyslexia.
I don't know how dyslexia affects the color, but
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think dyslexia works. Really don't.
And then recently, this week, it happened again on multiple occasions.
yeah. So there is some complexity to the fights still, even after the world first event, where people are who either haven't done it before or are just still figuring out how to do it, or just have a hard time remembering what to do.
What?
It's like it's not easy once someone does it the first time. It's still complex, and there's still a process to the
I'm not
whole
gonna
affair
lie.
that people have to
That's-
figure out.
Yeah, I'm not
I
gonna
mean,
lie,
especially when
still
you're
haven't-
under geared too. Yeah, like one of the biggest problems we had was the snipers on the roof that would one shot
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
And then it's just literally playing tag, I guess laser tag probably with the just instantly dying. It's awful.
Except
It's a lovely time.
game points, you're just dead.
For us, we were like, if we didn't have a close to the max light or recommended light for the raid, so you get bodied real.
That's basically what ended our run. I'd say, was the severe light disadvantage and the vandals.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think we all
At
We
least for
figured
me.
out fairly quickly what we needed to do. It was literally just
Yeah, we knew what to do.
It was execution. Execution's probably one of the biggest parts of the
Yeah.
raiding experience that people get stuck on, because some people it just doesn't make sense to. Some people just like it
Some
takes
people are
one person.
dyslexic.
There's
Some
6
people are
people, and it takes one person to do something by accident, and then it's like, oh well, now we got to start all over.
And another thing you should take into account is that we're all college students, so we have to actually abide by a schedule of classes
you
and
dickheads.
finals and whereas like other people who get world first are can do it easier because they don't have as many. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of the people who stream it, it's basically their job to stream it, and as such, going for world first is basically just them
job.
doing their work.
Yeah.
I gave
And that's a lot of what like esports, quote unquote, for video games is like. It's basically it's their job. It's their career path.
I gave
I
you
mean,
such an
if they're on a team and if they're on a team in like an esports league, then they get a salary, but they still get the prize money on the side.
Yeah,
Normally,
it's like football light. I'd say. I wouldn't say it's as reliable as football, but it's akin to it.
it's honestly closest to basketball. Reason why is because the arena size is usually basketball arenas for these types of events.
That's true.
I gave you such an easy outing on the last Wish, not the last Wish, Search for the Pass raid, because it was finals week, and I asked each and every one of you, like, you guys down for this? All of you said yes.
Yeah, it literally couldn't have been timed any
I-
worse.
It was bad, but I didn't have any finals. All
Yeah,
my
I didn't
finals were
have. I
due.
was finished.
most of my finals were like fairly easy too.
It was like right after the finals period.
Actually, no, I remember that week. I think the day after, I had to write like a 6-page essay. I wrote like a 6-page essay, and then had a final the morning of.
Did you
Oh, you
did you pre-write it before?
I got a 90 on the essay and like an 80 on the final. Like I didn't even study for the final.
Oh wow, that's
Jesus.
so good.
Don't do that, kids. Study for your finals and tests.
Yeah, don't play video games because for this what we were doing. It's not like there's even any prize money. It's just the prestige.
We also
Cool
get
jacket.
we get like we get a belt. You know, like
No,
you ever
you
watch
Get a
like any
belt and
wrestling.
the opportunity to buy a cool jacket.
Yeah, we were trying to get that jacket hard.
We were sweating.
I still haven't finished.
I mean,
it.
we have next time to try as well.
We do have one more
we have
opportunity.
summer. Yeah, that's when the next.
and we'll have more time to grind over the summer.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
actually a fact.
So let me
So we
ask you guys
actually
this. I have a question for you guys. What was your first rating experience in Destiny? In Destiny.
Destiny.
Uh,
Let's go first.
For me, it was the Leviathan raid when we did it for the first time. I think, who was it we did it with, Nick? Were you there?
It's probably me, Zero, you.
So to explain what my situation was, so for this game, it didn't come out for PC until a couple months after it had come out
On console.
consoles. So for the first raid, we already knew what to do by the time we got there because we had already seen people do it in consoles. So I already knew basically what to do. It's just actually having to go do it now. And so
Fuck.
oh, darn. And so because of that fact, I'm trying to think how to phrase it. Because of that, it wasn't like going for a world first. It was more of just, oh, we're just trying to get through it and experience the content here.
Yeah, it wasn't as much pressure, and
Yeah. It was a lot simpler to say. And so that was my first experience ever doing a raid in Destiny, so already knowing what to do. The first time I did one without knowing what to do was the next raid released, Eater of Worlds, which was more of a shorter encounter. I believe
boss.
we finished it in the first day. Did we not?
Oh,
we
you guys
finished
did. I wasn't there for it.
I didn't. I hated Curse of Osiris, so I didn't do it.
Yeah. What were your other guys' first experiences?
I remember playing with you guys. It was like Robbie, Nick, and like I don't remember who else was there. Like I like actually never raided before. Like I've had the game for like almost a month, and I like didn't even know. Yeah, I've never actually touched the raid. And it was like Leviathan. It's like you guys was like, hey, we need another person. It's like, oh, I've never done the raid. It's like, really? Get in here. And then Robbie like just more or less like walked me through the entire thing. It's like, oh wow, get these things out. And then like Eater of Worlds, I believe it was the first night it came out. It was me, a couple friends from back home, and we pugged like 3 other people, and we just actually 2 other people. And one thing I remember from that raid is my friend listened to nothing but the Wii music, the do 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 do.
Oh my god.
For the entire raid, that's the only. It took us like 3 hours to do Eater of Worlds, by the way.
Some people are crazy.
Some people.
And then Spire of the Stars, I just randomly pugged it, but I really didn't enjoy it that much.
Spire Stars.
I enjoyed Spire.
No, that's a lie.
So,
I did. I like Spire.
let's put them on a lie detector right now.
Yeah, sometimes the encounters are not too fun. Sometimes they're decent. It really depends on like what you have to do for the different encounters. So like Spire Stars was just way too complex compared
That's
to.
That's not
like,
complex. It's just really monotonous.
Yeah, there's too many steps to go through to like fight the main foe.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like it invites more opportunity to mess up, and when you mess up, you got to start from the beginning, and it's not very fun.
I disagree. Y'all are weird.
Well, I think since you're the one disagreeing, you're the weird one.
Yeah, then you're the odd one out, man.
Nick, what was your first time raiding? You raided in World of Warcraft, right?
So my first Destiny raid, yes, I did raid in WoW for over a decade.
Loser.
You liking that Azerite armor?
That's for another discussion, but no. No.
For another time when we're not.
That's for another rant. No, but I rated. My first raid in Destiny was the Vaulted Glass back in the first game. I don't think I even got close to the level for that. Like when Crota came out, like it was shortly after the first DLC came out, and I had a very nice group of people. They let me try stuff, I believe. I didn't get anything decent that raid. No, actually, I got Atheon's Epilogue. Yeah, I got a really good auto rifle back then. And I knew raiding beforehand. I had a lot of experience, and just the way Destiny did it, I was so sold on it. That raid still has some of the best bosses, I believe, in the franchise.
Yes, sir.
I think you started saying Alpha.
Yeah, I don't think it was Yeah, I think it was Volta Glass was the first one, even though I think I started around Crota's End because I played originally on Xbox 360 and then I moved over to PS4, so I was kind of behind. But
Why?
yeah, I don't really remember specifically, but I don't know. I know I got Vex really early and whatever, but I don't really have a story.
How many attempts did you have for Vex? I'm very curious.
It took like 2 or 3. It didn't take very long for me.
It was 2 for me. I got my second hard mode kill.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
All people are jealous. Who was this here? Zero Way. What were your guys' first experiences rating this game?
I mean, in terms of Destiny, it was the Leviathan. That was actually a lot of fun. Thought the mechanics were pretty good and easy to pick up compared to WoW, because like I didn't do as much rating as you have in WoW, because we've talked about that before. And I'm familiar with mechanics, so I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then I did, enjoyed it, and my roommate bought me the season pass for the DLC for Destiny 2, and I decided to play all of it to see whether it was worth the money or not. And there's a lot of I have a lot of strong opinions about it, but it's the second expansion of that season pass was worth it, but the first was not. And yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Wade? Was it Spire Stars that you mentioned?
No, my first was Leviathan, like back near when the game like almost first came out.
Oh, okay.
And it was still on console only. So that was not very fun, because rating on console is not the best thing. At least in my opinion, I didn't enjoy it.
No, I'm going to agree with you, because, good lord, I have ran into many of a dingus.
Controller.
Many of a dingus on a console. But anyway, let me bring up this next subject of pugs. So what? Not the dog pugs, not those cute little dogs.
I love pugs. I have one. His name is Cole.
They're cute.
Want a picture?
No.
Yeah,
I can send you a
Go ahead.
picture.
Go to your local pet store and buy a pug. This is sponsored by Petsco.
No, don't buy, adopt.
Now, are we sponsored by Totino's Pizza Roll?
In
No.
the
All right.
arms.
Anyway, on to what Nick is talking about, which is probably far less interesting. But
Pugs is an acronym standing for Pick Up Groups. That's when you go onto the internet.
Or
I didn't
LFG.
actually know that.
Or LFG. Good way to describe it.
You go
I always thought they were called pubs because it was like
Pubs.
a public environment. But people use the G sometimes too.
I don't really get the pug thing.
But anyway, so basically, it's when you find a bunch of random people you don't know on the internet to do worry because you don't have any real life friends. More or less.
But I remember in one of my pugs in the Taken King raid. Oh, this poor guy. I understand a lot of people when their first time raiding, it can be very stressful. Like it's your very, very first time. Like, oh my god, I'm with people. This is a very hard challenge. I don't want to screw up.
They have expectations and I can't meet them.
You must be a god. I'm not that god. But I remember this kid. He joined my group, and it's hard mode Oryx, the Taken King. I'm on the last boss, and I'm looking for people. I have like 4 spots, and this kid joins in, and we ask him, it's like, have you done this before? No, I've never done this before. I'll name him Jimmy, little Jimmy.
Little Jimmy.
Little Jim.
Little Jimmy. I look at his gear. He has like a scout rifle, a fusion rifle, and a sword, like a free sword.
Well, no one knows if that's good or not. You have to give context for the viewers.
It's really bad.
Okay, so what a fusion rifle is, it's imagine like a shotgun that you have to charge up and it sends out like bursts of energy. A scout rifle is basically like kind of like a sniper, but like not as powerful.
It's like semi-auto.
Yeah, and a sword is a sword.
It's a whack and stick.
Yeah, it's a whack and stick.
So I see him with this loadout, and I'm already scared to death of him. I'm like, do I kick him? Do I not kick him? So I ask him if he has anything else. It's like, do you got like a sniper rifle or
you have Gallahorn
or a machine gun maybe?
Gallahorn.
And he says he does. He has the best sniper that you can buy in the game. I'm like, okay, can you get it out for me? He's like, Well, it was. He gives me a fake number, by the way, a fake power number that doesn't exist. And I'm
It was
like,
420.
he gave like 190 or something, and the number he's supposed to have is like 330 in power. So I immediately call him out. My pug buddy, he starts raging. He's like, you freaking idiot! What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you even here?
Kind of being a chode.
And this poor kid, like, I swear he's on the verge of tears. Like, he just wanted to do this raid, and he wanted to get his arm
You're
up.
making yourself sound like a real asshole right now. I hope you know that.
What, me?
Yeah.
No, listen, it actually happened.
That wasn't
I think
him.
they said that.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
Nick
know
that said
it
that.
wasn't, but you're not the good guy, Mr.
I
That's
don't.
fault.
Actually, I become a good guy. Listen, I pulled Anakin. I redeemed myself.
Anakin never redeemed himself.
I mean, if you go on any like LFG, they like you need to have like X amount of clears and be able to do that, which is understandable. But you're like a lot of people who've never done it, and you have to be willing to open and teach. Like anytime I pug a raid, I was like, hey, if you're new, join. Like they have to learn sooner or later. If you're not gonna let them in, like they're not gonna enjoy playing the game, and they're gonna stop playing it.
It's one
Unless
thing.
people are gonna play the game.
You know, it's one thing to not know how to do the raid, but it's another thing to not have the gear and basically lie about what gear you have.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's also those people who think they know better than the people who've been doing it for a while. Especially
Yeah,
that
that
one
too.
guy, the boring bird call.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Ugh.
Yeah, that's directly involving me. Because this random pug guy who joined our group was like, all right, he was the entire time we were doing the every encounter, if I'm mistaken, if I remember correctly, I should say. He was like, we should do this strat, and we were like, no, we do it this way, and then we did that, and then it was like that the entirety of up until the last boss, which the last boss of the Last Wish, like we mentioned with the world first stuff.
You have no room for error. You have no room for error.
There's that, and there's a lot of steps involved, but it's not as bad as, in my opinion, Spire Stars. But there's this decent amount of steps involved in communication and coordination that you have to do. There's one part where a person has to stand on a pedestal that allows you to see symbols inside a room, and the other person has an item that basically explodes that activates the correct symbol that the person standing on the platform has to basically say, all right, are you looking for example, I was the one holding the item that you need to explode, and I was looking at the center pillar that tells you the symbol, and I'm like, all right, I'm looking for a bird on a branch looking left, and he's like, what is that call? And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, it was something like that. How'd it go?
So it went like this. So
I really want to see like the diagram you're going to be showing people for this, Nick.
Yeah, no. For those who are watching this on YouTube, I will post a ribbon eye chart, and we will talk about those ones.
You always post my ribbon eye chart.
So
that's the good one.
Yeah, I will post all the good ones. But basically, you were doing ad duty, Zero. And
but I had the ball.
No, he had the ball. He had the ball.
Oh, he did. That's right. Sorry, you're right.
I was looking through the glass, and he's looking for a bird, and he gives the call "boring bird." 9 times out of 10, I would know what he's talking about, but there are 2 birds who are facing. They're standing up the same way, but facing opposite directions, and one was on a stick. And I just remember having this blank over Discord. I'm like, which one are you talking about?
Yeah, that's another thing with raiding. Communication's very important, especially for Destiny, because a lot of the complex mechanics requires multiple players to be doing multiple things. And so if someone uses like something like everything has like a general shorthand to kind of like make it easier to figure out what they're talking about. So if someone says something that no one else knows what they're talking about because they're used to saying it a different way than the other group,
He made a call
just
out
throws
that
everything
nobody
out.
knew.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Like,
one of the things with, raiding as a group like we do a lot of the times is we all know we know what we're talking about between each other. But then when we go out into pugs and people will, interpret different symbols different ways, it makes it really hard to communicate. So
Yeah,
Well,
so
especially with the person who thinks that they know it all and are like, "Oh yeah, this is how we should be doing this." That person was not smart and was.
there are a lot of people who are elitist about the whole thing, and it's kind of annoying.
he threw a math problem at you, Zero. He was like, 1 + 1 is equal like 69 or something.
I called him
No.
out on
His
him.
thing was
No,
like,
yeah.
we were making an argument for not. So there's
We
a
were
way to
calling
like.
him out for his bullshit. Oh crap.
There's a way to
Fine. Go ahead.
do the boss easy. That's called like a cheese. I don't know why it's called cheese. Don't
I
ask.
love cheese.
But basically,
Straight
to
Gouda.
do it, you need to be able to output a certain amount of damage as a group. And we weren't meeting that because we couldn't. We just didn't have the damage value for it. And so we were like, okay, we can't. We were trying to figure out how to change it so that we could make that amount. And so one of so we what did you suggest here? You suggested something, and the guy was like, "No, it's not going to work. You're adding 1 + 1, but subtracting 20." And it's like, it's like.
I remember I flipped out on him, and we both all just left the group. And
Did
just,
we?
like, I had to leave, and he left.
no,
like
you
You had to
beforehand.
leave because you had
work.
something to do, and then I had internet issues, and I ended up
Yeah,
disconnected.
Blame the internet issue.
Hey! I didn't.
Though it did. Though, to be fair, it did seem like he left and then you disconnected, and it seemed like you rage quit as well.
Yeah, it was really bad timing.
I remember
But
getting
we
DMs.
managed to get it together and do it later on when we had people that we didn't need to pull from randoms.
And now we like joke, like an inside joke between of us. It's like, let's do boring bird guys, and you guys just, I get irritated.
I absolutely hate it
Uh-huh.
because it's just like the guy was just he just was like, you're not adding up math. Like the math thing threw me off so much. I didn't understand what he was talking about. Because I remember suggesting that, how about I do this? I was trying to switch positions with him because he wasn't, I didn't want him to make the calls or whatever position he was doing at the time. So that's what I remember.
I believe you're trying to get him to do all the bitch work, like kill the ads, and you know.
Yeah, because like he was not, because I could do his job, and that's why I was like, all right, just let me do it, so we could get out of here and get our loot,
And never talk to you ever again.
Yeah, the loot's important, but
I
Yikes.
keep my loot. Why do you do this to me? Oh god, I actually raided a guy earlier. Not all pokes are like this, not all bad. I actually was raiding in a random group. This guy comes in and he drops a soundboard sound, and he's just a comic relief throughout the rest of the raid.
beautiful.
Like the first time,
Sounds fun though.
like we wiped on the first boss in Last Wish for like the first time in months, and all of a sudden I hear this oof sound.
Oh, that was Robbie.
No, it was the same one he does, but it was from the pub. And I was like, son of a bitch, why did you do this? Is he here?
God damn it.
Yeah.
But there are also like responsibilities that people like who are new that they shouldn't have, but the game will like randomly pick them. Alpha, you know what I'm talking about specifically. There was the boss before Oryx called the Daughters of Oryx, and they randomly took someone to do some platform jumping. That's it. That's all they have to do. Do some platform jumping and then just get a bubble. I remember like praying to the gods that little Jimmy in our group doesn't get get picked, like, or chosen. It's like, please don't pick Jimmy. Please don't pick
It's a
Jimmy.
1 in 6 chance.
And I just see him as like, oh crap, Jimmy's been chosen. Alright, Jimmy, I don't like my odds, but prove me wrong. And I just see, he does the jump. I see his name tag moving. It's at the top of my screen. And then I see his nameplate falling. And just like my hopes and dreams, he comes down with them. And it's like, oh, Jimmy, why was it you? Why have you done this to me?
I can sort of relate to that. Like, I remember one time I got randomly pugged with a person that's actually deaf. And we were doing Last Wish, and it wasn't like we basically, and I actually raided with this person again. I did her clan, who the clan is called the Last Deaf Guardian, and everyone in that clan was deaf, and we did Eater of Worlds. It really wasn't that hard, but when it came to Last Wish, it was kind of just tell them, hey, you just gonna have to clear ads. And then I think the only really hard part was the last encounter. on Last Wish, it's so basically for the last encounter on Last Wish, after you kill Riven, you go inside of her mouth, and you have to shoot her heart, basically. Don't tell me. I don't know how like Wish Dragon anatomy works or whatever.
Open heart
Turned a
surgery.
little bit from us talking about World First to us telling our horror stories of raiding.
Oh, it's both horror and happy stories.
I mean, it's still involved with raiding. You know, it's still raiding.
Fair enough.
It's like because you have to do like a specific thing for the last part, and you kind of have to like you need to count down your time. Well, it's hard for that person. So like if they're because they couldn't be the first person, and they couldn't be like the last person. And it was just kind of like an RNG where we're just like, okay, if you see your name on the bottom left-hand screen that says Fate Chosen, pick it up. Please, just pick it up and just follow us. And then we just have to like tell the other people like, hey, pick up the orbs now to like reset the time. But it wasn't like... But the person wasn't like doing anything wrong. Like the person had fine gear. It's just like, hey, like this is like, you know, like an extra challenge mode, as you could call it in a sense.
There are actually some jobs in raids that like everyone's just terrified to do. Like no matter what you do.
Oh yeah. Especially in D1. I don't think there's any roles really in D2 though.
Remember Golgoroth Alpha?
Yes.
That one. So basically,
Are you talking about the shooters on each side of him?
I'm talking about like the person with the taunt him.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, you're find this giant ogre-looking alien, and you have to shoot his back to gain his attention in order for everyone else to do damage. The problem is when the door opens to his room, and it's like you have that very awkward silence where it's like, so who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do this?
That's literally it. Oh my god.
And it's like, all right, here we go. Time to step up, boys.
I don't know. I feel like there's better examples because there's the sword person for Crota, and then there's the like relic holder for I don't know. These are all D1 things.
Well, Golgoroth is the big one for me because like it's such a for me it was the hardest thing to do in my life. Cause I'm like, I got it. No, I don't got it. Come on, sniper, hit his back.
Well, like the runner you were saying, who jumps above, you always wanted it to be you.
Well, yeah, because all you do is just hit. You're just jumping. It's an easy jumping puzzle. It's like I just hit A, go forward. Hit A, go forward.
Yeah.
Wherever you're jumping.
And I guess the equivalent in D2 would be the Void Realm and Leviathan. I can't think of any others.
Yeah,
Any other roles people don't really want to do because it has a high skill gap.
I wouldn't say the Spire Star one.
Yeah.
No, the vault, the vault reader.
Oh
It's not like
I
a high
guess.
skill cap. It's just annoying to do.
Yeah, you gotta know the mechanic.
The vault reader, I feel like is the worst. It's just like, all right.
It's not hard to do. I like
It's not
it.
hard, but people
Yeah, I don't-
dread it. That's the thing. People who are new to the game think it's hard, but it's really not, and they just never want to learn it. So
Man, one of the hardest puzzles in Destiny. That
Puzzle. I think before Last Wish, it was probably was Callus, Big Daddy Callus.
Some people just want to get guns and shoot people.
I
yeah,
just want DPS meters, man. That's all
yeah.
I care about.
And then there's the people who freaking grind out, try to go for world records speed runs in raiding.
Those guys are insane.
Yeah,
I love
that's a
speedrun.
whole other.
Some people have hobbies. Some people don't.
Yeah, some people have
I mean, branding is a hobby, so
one.
What'd you say? Something's a hobby? Running?
brand.
grinding.
Oh, grinding. Okay.
Mm.
I heard running for some reason. I'm like, excuse me?
I heard
That's also a hobby.
branding.
Yeah, I also heard branding.
I mean, all three of those things are hobbies. So
You're not wrong.
it
Branding?
depends on where you're coming from, dude.
I mean,
Branding.
you could be branding cows.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
that's like a job.
Oh, I meant you like branding
Could
as
be a
in,
hobby.
like getting a brand. You know what I mean?
I know.
I
know.
No, I don't
my
know.
job, but it's also my hobby. I enjoy.
It's also my hobby.
Exactly.
I love branding cows in my site in my spare time.
Anyway,
Back
Destiny
to
2
raiding.
rating.
Back
Yep.
to raiding.
Aw.
This is everything to do with raiding.
And branding cows.
So,
Any more topics?
where were we anyway?
Oh, we were talking about pugs and stuff. pickup groups. But
Yeah, so overall, the whole experience of raiding, it's mainly tied together by you need 6 people to do it if you want to do it. And so it's just a matter of where are those 6 people going to come from. And then there's also different challenges in raids sometimes. Some people want to do them, some don't. So overall, the whole experience is very... it's like a middle ground meeting thing. You have to find a group of people who are willing to like say, okay, well, we can do this or we won't do this, and have the same like goals from the experience.
Exactly.
Because if someone doesn't want to do a challenge, but another person's only there because they're going to do it, it's like, now you got a problem.
Yeah.
So working around that stuff, it's not hard. You generally have it done in a couple minutes, and then. Yeah, but it's definitely a core part of the experience, I'd say.
I would say, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there. For the world first race, like I've been hyped to do this event for years, and to do it itself is like probably one of the most mentally drained activities I've done. And I say that as a long distance runner, and people call me crazy for doing that.
How is that mentally draining?
It's just
it's pretty mentally draining.
it gets frustrating from time because it's like we're stuck here. We know what to do, but why are we still fucking up?
Well, no, mentally draining for long distance running.
For swimming, anything that doesn't involve like a ball or something, it's all in your mind to keep yourself going. It's kind of like willpower. I don't know.
It's like I'm doing a 12.5 lap race. Oh crap! I have 6 more to go. God damn you!
And then raiding, it's like you have to have the stamina to keep going when everybody just wants to go to bed.
As a swimmer, when I was on the swim team, I refused to do distance swimming. I was only a sprinter.
Oh yeah, yeah. The 50 is like what everybody wants to do, but the coach tells you can't.
No.
Yeah, I at least was fast enough to do that, so I was pretty happy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm glad I got the experience now. I know what to do to give you guys for summer's race. And I think we'll get our jackets then. I'll be damned if
don't. Someone's gonna have to buy me a lot of denim.
What?
Someone's gonna have to buy me a lot of denim and make me a jacket.
A lot of demon.
A lot of denim.
There's a lot of them at my job.
A lot of
Go
D.
to the 4th Avenue Street Fair and then get the.
It's not the same if I buy it.
Okay.
I will give you my.
Hey, you ever heard that free food tastes better than paid for food?
It's true.
That's totally not true, but
It's so true.
It is true.
It is very true.
I always prefer food I've bought.
But that's my dog. Ray,
Oh.
do you like free food
Hey.
or do you like paid food?
Well, she's a dog. She's a baby.
I mean,
back
the food you
back
make
to the
yourself.
topic.
She would really put anything in her mouth and eat it.
Anyway, rating.
Yikes.
Back to Nick's grade.
So,
Mr.
no.
Professor.
No!
Mr. Professor. I have to say, Nick is a fine, outstanding chap. He should absolutely fail your class.
Wow.
He should not put in the maximum
Wow.
and anything.
Some food
And-
you are.
Oh my.
And I can personally vouch for such a fact. So please give me his good grade instead so that I can graduate a year early.
Alright, he's banning you. You're getting banned.
Leave the
Alright,
Discord.
anyway. Any more to say on the rating experience, Nicholas?
I think we covered all that I wanted to do. You guys have been a fantastic first group. Thank you for.
Have we though?
First group, what are you going to replace us?
We'll do another podcast after Penumbra, or whatever.
When I have
Whatever
a
the
diploma
name
and
of that
everything, I'm like, guys, I graduated.
Like, hey, I need a podcast for this class that you took like a long time ago. Let's do it again.
Do it one more time.
Did I say that
Alright.
right? Is it called Penumbra?
Yeah,
Penumbra.
Season of the
Yeah.
Redacted.
I have Antumbra.
Season of the SCP.
I know, that's what I was like. Am I talking about Ribbon references or not?
Are you getting PTSD already?
Yes.
From a raid show,
Boring
dude?
bird.
I have Antumbra.
Yeah, no.
Did I just hear Boring Bird?
Alright, well, thank you all.
Again, that
thank
guy
you
was
all for
absurdly.
joining us autists as we talk about.
Wow. Wow. you
Insert-
were
This
about to say
has
that.
been the best of the bunch. Have a lovely day, night, whenever you're listening to this. If you're listening to this, I imagine you're probably asleep in class. Don't worry, I do. And we'll talk.
And we still do not have a closer.
With that, I would bid you all farewell.
With that, Nick will put on some 90s punk rock and fade out as we talk about random crap.
Nah, he's gonna
Which
play
should we
Crab
say?
Rave. Not play
Yeah.
Crab Rave.
The wish
Yeah, play Crab
Rave.
Classic
do that.
crab.
Nick's class, if he doesn't play Crab Rave, you should fade.
Oh, no.